People get banned from YouTube for a lot of reasons. Some bullied kids, others did other things to kids. In some cases, people didn't even deserve to be banned at all, but the ban hammer has no mercy. Austin Jones, known online as OsDudePro, was a vlogger who started posting to YouTube in 2007, with most of the content on his uploads being covers of songs by bands like Fall Out Boy and 21 Pilots. After these covers became extremely popular, he even started releasing original songs, targeted at the same demographic that listened to the songs he covered, very young girls. On the surface, it seemed innocuous, just another person capitalizing on that young demographic with their music. Nothing too uncommon, all things considered. In 2013, he also started posting to Vine, which became popular due to his biting comedy.
Tree, you need to get your shit together. This just ain't cutting it. You look stupid!
But it turns out Austin had a much darker reason for trying to become popular with teenage girls. At some point during the year of our Lord, 2010, when he would have been 17 to 18 years old, he presumably took a stroll through his follower list, picked whichever ones were the most to his liking, and took to their DMs to make a most inappropriate request. Specifically, he asked for twerking videos, and due to being starstruck and very young, many girls went along with it. I don't think it's possible to know how many girls got this message and just didn't reply, but it's clear that he targeted multiple girls at once, showing he wasn't even trying to be cautious about how he did it. However, the girls he was trying to groom into doing this were so young that they didn't even know how to twerk, but that was no biggie for Austin since he just showed them how to do it.
So this is what you do. You stand with your legs apart, you bend your legs, and then you arch your back, and you don't arch it, you do it faster, so it's like that.
A twerk tutorial from a serial pedophile was not on the list of things I expected to see today. I have to wonder how many times he did this, because he's doing it pretty efficiently here. Did he watch some how-tos himself to get the technique down so he could pass it on? Some fire YouTube clap content? Regardless of how ridiculous and funny it may be to watch this bowl-cut predator throw it back, he quickly accumulated a large collection of illicit images and videos from minors. To make it even more egregious than it already is, Austin wasn't just getting twerk videos from fans who happened to be minors, he specifically requested that they state their age loud and clear while doing it. One of the most common defenses from predators is the claim that they didn't know the victim's age. But Austin was really giving his future lawyer a run for his money here. Though this began all the way back in 2010, the story first broke on May 10th, 2015, when a girl called Taylor uploaded a video titled "The Austin Jones Situation," in which she recounted her experience with Austin. She decided to message him after some sad posts he had made on Facebook, and as soon as she told him she was 15, he proceeded to compliment her and ask for a twerking video, followed by a twerking tutorial. It's almost as if the age was the trigger that prompted him to do it. Hey you may be in danger. The United Healthcare CEO says maybe a third of citizens were affected by a recent hack. A massive AT&T data breach affected 73 million customers. Oh, you like concerts, buddy? 500 million people's user data was just breached through a Ticketmaster hack. Your information could be at risk. Who's gonna save you now, buddy? I thought I was safe. It turns out my data may be breached. It's almost over. Please don't let them find it. But I can help with today's sponsor, Aura. Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, hey man, just leave me alone, spammers, and others who want to learn about you.
Like where you live.
Aura can identify data brokers who are exposing your info right now and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. You don't even have to do anything. Data brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but it can be very confusing to figure out how.
How do I submit an opt-out request?
Never ask that question ever again with Aura, because they'll handle it all for you.
Thank you!
It also has so much more. It's an all-in-one app with parental controls, antivirus, a VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. If you're tired of picking up the phone to robo-scammers to the point you don't even want to use it, then Aura is for you. Stop data brokers in their tracks from exposing your personal information. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/turkeytom, for a 14-day free trial to see how much of your personal data is being sold. What's that? Your data is safe now? Oh.
Thank me later.
In her video, Taylor pointed out that he never actually said her name in the video, suggesting that it had already been made beforehand, probably sent to some previous victim. Still, she refused to send anything due to being insecure about how she looked, among other reasons, prompting Austin to stop responding altogether, making it clear that his one and only interest was sexual. Eventually, Taylor told the story to some guy she met on Twitter who disliked Austin but for other reasons, and this person, who went unnamed in her video, decided to post it. This eventually caught Austin's attention, and he engage with it, not to apologize or anything, but to claim that the incident had been caused by him taking antidepressants. This is like when Vito from The Sopranos got caught in a gay club with a guy and tried to claim that it was his heart medication that made him do it. Your Honor, I'm not gay, but I was watching a lot of Skibbity Toilet at the time. Austin proceeded to threaten to sue the guy who posted this stuff to Twitter on the grounds of slander, despite the accusations being verifiably true. Given Austin started doing this in 2010, and this video came out in 2015, this is probably not the first time he's threatened to sue people to keep his business on the low. The person on Twitter that Taylor might have been referencing in her video may be a YouTuber called D-Fizzy, who was spearheading the efforts on Twitter to expose Austin as a predator. But these efforts didn't yield anything of note besides Austin claiming he asked for twerk videos because he thought they were funny, and a classic YouTuber-style apology sent in private to one of his victims.
Hannah, I just actually really do think you're pretty, and I just wanted to make you feel special, and I'm sorry you're mad at me.
I wonder if he really thought going, "Sorry I made you mad, girl," doing his best Swagapino impression would get him off the hook for soliciting minors. He should have tried that on the judge, too. Maybe just mew in the courtroom. As a consequence of this information coming to light, people made a petition to take him off the Vans Warped Tour, which did achieve its goal since he eventually left of his own accord. About a month later, on June 29th, he released another apology, this time not in private to one of his victims, but to his channel.
I've recently come under some fire on social media for mistakes I've made in the past. I used to ask fans for twerking videos. Yes, twerking, the dance move. It's not something that I'm proud of, it's not something that I think is right, and I shouldn't have done it.
In the video, he excuses his behavior with his depression, going into painstaking detail about all the tragedies that ever happened in his life, from his sibling dying to his bad relationship with his dad, as if any of it was relevant to him trying to watch underage girls twerk. He also brings up his self-harm tendencies and claims he was 5150'd for an unspecified time, and tries to defend himself from the accusations, saying,
"Nothing ever went further than twerking videos. There were never any nudes, never any physical contact. It never happened."
He might have not been lying about this at that point, but it would eventually change. No one outside his circle took his apology seriously, but his fans were unusually forgiving. The next year, after these allegations had already been made public, saw Austin's biggest growth so far, and he released videos without any backlash. In May 2017, he got to around 500,000 subscribers, and mind you, he only had 90,000 when his apology came out. The thing about predators, though, is that they always reoffend. A slap on the wrist just meant he'd become more careful with his grooming. A court document shows that, in August of 2016, he began DMing a 14-year-old girl, feigning shock when she revealed her age, explaining how she was lucky he was speaking to her. He then asked her to prove she was his biggest fan, demanding exactly the content you'd expect, but this time involving actual nudity. In May 2017, he found another victim, referred to as Victim A. He offered her to do a tryout, or audition, which involved her doing the same thing. He actually framed the entire situation as if he was doing them a favor, which I can't tell if it's just a line he came up with to manipulate these girls easier, or if he actually believes that's the case. Following a criminal investigation by DHS, which included a summons to Comcast to provide the DMs, Austin was incarcerated in June 2017 and his house was searched. The illicit material was all found, and he confessed to everything during an interrogation. The arrest led to a media firestorm, with YouTubers and mainstream media reporting on it. Austin faced up to 30 years in prison for the possession and procurement of illicit material containing children, with the prosecution arguing he had been caught talking to at least 6 underage girls between 2010 and 2017. 3 days after his arrest, he paid $100,000 bail, but was still kept under house arrest and wasn't allowed to access the internet. YouTube initially refused to delete the YouTube channel, refusing to comment on the reasons behind it, stringing the channel's existence along until 2019, when it was finally banned. Around the same time, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. As of right now, his release is set for December 31st, 2027. Even still, when he gets out, I hope someone supervises what he's up to online. Otherwise, we can look forward to some more emo band covers, which are kind of good, and twerk tutorials, which are, you know, he's a pedophile. At first glance, 8 Passengers was just like any other family YouTube channel. Created in 2013 by Ruby Frank, a mother of 6, the channel began as an attempt to slow down time as she realized her oldest was going to be 18 soon. It just so happened that this wholesome family project made for extremely profitable YouTube content. The very first video posted was a gender reveal party for their then unborn child, and once the baby was born, it was shown in a video right out of the womb. Rarely does someone with that large a family have the time and patience to regularly turn their life into content, so it's not surprising that 8 Passengers became one of the largest channels of its genre. By 2021, it had gained over 2 million subscribers, getting over 40 million views a month at the peak of its popularity. However, this success didn't come without some trouble. Over the years, fans began noticing some problematic behaviors from Ruby, such as filming her kids even when they expressly asked her not to. This raised questions concerning the privacy of Ruby's kids, along with their ability to consent to being filmed in the first place. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Since the channel is deleted, it's impossible to personally verify it, but it was claimed that the comment sections were full of files posting suggestive timestamps, something that's been documented as a phenomenon in family-oriented channels and kids content in general. This wasn't a problem exclusive to Ruby's channel whatsoever, and it really wasn't her fault, but it certainly added to the list of concerns people had with exposing the inner workings of your family life as much as she did. It was only in 2019 that there was an uproar in the community after she was notified that her youngest child, a 5-year-old, had forgotten to pack her lunch, and her reaction really speaks for itself.
Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry, and hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
In and of itself, this was more than enough to pique people's attention to the possibility that Ruby was an abusive parent, as dysfunctional food dynamics are often one of the most common manifestations of parental abuse. People began digging up other things, some of which were lighter in nature, like having kids do push-ups as a punishment, some of which were a lot more serious.
I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
Based on the clips people collected from the channel's own uploads, the older boy, Chad, got the worst of it. At one point, he was sent to a boot camp called Anasazi, where he had to live out in the wilderness without electronics. This is what they said on the topic of why they did this.
It's an accumulation of things over years, well before we ever started YouTubing or well before we ever got into social media. And it's reached a point where Chad needs to develop some very basic maturity and skills that he's going to need as an adult. And
This is a chance for like a reset, like a start over, like a do-over, like a fresh beginning.
yeah.
After spending over 2 months there, the family reunited in an emotional vlog, but the joy died down quickly as after pranking his younger brother by making him pack all of his things overnight, telling him they were going to Disneyland, Chad lost his bed privileges for 7 months. This isn't to say that doing that to your younger brother isn't a dick move you should be punished for, but 7 months with no bed is obviously crossing a line. The backlash against Ruby's parenting techniques was further compounded by TikTok, where a bunch of people were uploading snippets of her abusive behavior and getting a lot of views off of it. Videos surfaced of her threatening her kids with severe punishments, including threatening to behead a stuffed animal belonging to one of her very young daughters. It got to a point where they could no longer afford to ignore it, so when Business Insider offered to interview them, they jumped on the opportunity. There, they shared several interesting details, including the fact that CPS had visited them only to catch Ruby baking with her daughter, and the home perfectly in order, prompting the person visiting to embarrassingly apologize and leave. However, none of the criticism was ever accepted even partially, as the couple relegated all of it to haters purposely misconstruing them. The interview didn't help their public image, and their reputation after this never really recovered. After this, their upload schedule gradually slowed down as Ruby searched for other avenues to make money. In mid-2020, she partnered with Jody Hildebrand, who used to be the family's therapist, in a project that aimed to be a support group for mothers, giving them advice and helping them treat those lost in the darkness of a distortion. With language as vague as that, you can be sure something strange is going on. Ruby's personal life and online presence were completely rearranged around this project called Connections, with some people pointing out it sounded a lot like a cult. She renamed the 8 Passengers Instagram to Moms of Truth and completely rebranded it, using it exclusively to promote this new project of hers.
Let me tell you the truth. This world where there are gangs and there is distortion and there is lust and there are people who want to hurt others, that's not the real world. That is the delusional world. We have so many people living in the delusional world and so few people living in the truth that it looks like the distorted world is the real world.
This rebrand came with a conscious decision to stop sharing as much of her family life, which I assume was done strategically so that fewer people were scrutinizing her decisions as a mom, but it sort of had the opposite effect. Not only were people already aware of her past deeds, but the kooky, vague, quasi-religious lingo she started using after she began Connections was raising a lot of red flags, leading people to think that something insidious was going on behind the scenes. As Ruby and Jody grew closer, Ruby decided to move Jody in to live with the rest of the family around 2022. And according to the kids' testimonies, Jodi slowly brainwashed Ruby into becoming more and more vile. She even pitted her against her husband, Kevin, who was forced to abide by their draconian rules to continue being a part of the family and see the kids. Kevin was gradually pushed out of the household, first being disallowed to enter the second floor, and then persuaded to move out for bringing bad energy to the family. Kevin's absence from the house was correlated with a significant worsening in the kids' living conditions, with Ruby often leaving them at the house without supervision for several days, even covering the windows with newspapers so no one would look in. She also forced them to work outside for hours without food and water in over 100-degree weather. The kids were being isolated and malnourished, being fed the bare minimum to keep them sustained. If this wasn't a cult before, it absolutely was now. In May 2023, Ruby and Jodi relocated the family to Jodi's house in Ivins, which no one, including Kevin, had any knowledge of. The abuse continued until the 30th of August, when Russell, the second youngest, managed to escape the house via an open window. He ran to one of the neighbors, begging him for food and water. The neighbor immediately noticed that Russell had tape around his ankles, looked emaciated, and had open wounds, so he called the police.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. Said he had just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his leg, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
When the police came, they discovered the horrific living conditions the kids were in, prompting the CPS to immediately take the kids away. They also promptly arrested the two women, who were charged with 6 counts of child abuse. Following Ruby's arrest, her sisters also took to Instagram, saying the arrest needed to happen. One of Ruby's daughters, Sherry, posted to Instagram celebrating her mom's arrest. She had already moved out long before the arrest and tried to alert the police to her mother's antics, calling a wellness check on the family when she'd heard the siblings had been left in the house by themselves for 5 days. But unfortunately, nothing came of it. About a week following the arrest, the 8 Passengers channel was taken down by YouTube, and the rest of the related online presence was slowly shut down. During the trial, Ruby went out of her way to make herself even more condemnable, accusing Russell of essaying his sisters, claiming he had admitted to it in front of her. There was no proof, of course. What there was proof of was Ruby referring to her kids as the spawn of Satan. This phrase came from her diary, in which she admitted to refusing to feed the demons, shaving her son's head as a punishment, making her daughter stand in the rain for hours, and dousing her with water they used to wash the dog, all in an effort to break the deal with the devil she believed they had made. In the end, she took a deal and pled guilty to 4 counts of child abuse to prevent being convicted of 6 and being sentenced to up to 30 years in prison. Needless to say, we won't be hearing about Ruby Frank for a long time. Calvin Lee Vale, better known as Leafy is Here, needs no introduction. He first started uploading videos around 2012, originally focusing on Minecraft Let's Plays. However, this kind of content was already very saturated by the time he began, so it never got off the ground, leading him to pursue other avenues. Eventually, he added unscripted commentary over CSGO footage to his arsenal of formats, sporadically appearing alongside the Let's Plays. By late 2015, it was clear that commentary was outcompeting the other formats by a large margin, so he decided to focus exclusively on it, and the content started spreading around YouTube like wildfire. By January 2016, he had over 600,000 subscribers, ballooning to almost 4 million in the next 6 months, with 4 to 5 million views every single day. His success came with a very large community of people who embraced Leafy's style of commentary and even began repeating certain terms like hiss, or a 3-word phrase that can get you demonetized nowadays. Many other creators began doing the exact same format and even became successful in their own right doing it. However, there were also downsides to his success. For example, before, when he was a small channel, he could just say whatever he wanted about anyone he was reacting to, and it was inconsequential. But now that he had this gigantic community, it meant whoever he made a video on was immediately swarmed by thousands of people, flooding the person's comments with negativity. Usually, this didn't result in much. Mr. Black Darkness 666, for example, cast a curse on Leafy and all of his fans.
"O God Lucifer, hear my plea, as my will is to send misfortune. He has done me wrong, and now he will feel my wrath."
They eventually met up on Drama Alert, where they sorted out their differences. However, not every target of Leafy's was going to be as simple to deal with. Just a few months later, he got into more drama when he made a video on a YouTuber called Tommy NC. Unsurprisingly, a lot of his fans went to Tommy's channel and left negative comments, causing Tommy, someone who is obviously developmentally challenged in some way, to become upset and respond in a video.
"Hello folks, I'm having a difficult time right now because some people are threatening my life, threatening my family, and all I wanted to do was inspire people. Some leafy guy or Team Star people are threatening me.
This led to a public outcry against Leafy, spearheaded by Ethan Klein, who made a video criticizing Leafy for being a bully. Leafy ended up deleting the Tommy NC video and making an apology, thanking his fans for supporting him and explaining his side of the story. However, this apology was followed by a video accusing Ethan of hypocrisy, claiming that he behaved very differently in the DMs behind the scenes, and had done videos making fun of kids in the past. Regardless of who exactly was at fault for the bridge between H3H3 and Leafy being burned, the end result was the same, and soon other bridges would go up in flames as well. In mid-2016, both iDubbbz and Pyrocynical came out against Keemstar, someone who, at least up until that point, was a close associate of Leafy's. However, soon after they made their callouts, Leafy jumped right on the bandwagon and made his own video, claiming Keem had been talking them to other YouTubers. Unaffected by this drama, and maybe even propelled by it, Leafy continued to do insane numbers, nearing 5 million subs. The tide only changed in September when iDubbbz released the Leafy is Here content cop. Hailed by many as the greatest content cop video, it was the most effective critique of Leafy by far. There was no aspect of Leafy's format that went without criticism, from him repeating himself a lot and stretching out the transition slides to make videos longer, to going after low-hanging fruit targets with low-effort videos. Most memorably, iDubbbz claimed Leafy could dish it but couldn't take it, theorizing that Leafy was insecure about his chin based on a series of pictures where he went out of his way to hide it. The reason the content cop was so effective is that in Leafy's response, he spends the majority of the video defending himself against the weak chin allegations, and as later proved by iDubbbz in his final video about Leafy, he had blocked the word chin or iDubbbz from being mentioned. His reputation, both among other creators and the community at large, was severely damaged, and there were very few people still in his corner, even if he still retained a decent amount of viewers. However, they were soon to go too, as his upload schedule slowed down, presumably due to how much of a negative experience it became to upload as frequently as he did, and eventually, in December 2017, he went on an indefinite hiatus. One factor that usually goes ignored when talking about Leafy's hiatus is the fact that he already wasn't in that great of a standing with YouTube, as he'd already gotten in trouble for making fun of trans activist Milo Stewart, and it was right around that time that YouTube was beginning to become a lot more strict on that kind of stuff. This meant that it was a huge risk for him to continue putting all of his chips into YouTube, since many people already thought his content was little more than glorified cyberbullying. Admittedly, the humor was very rough around the edges, I think, even for that time. In his video about Keemstar, he had the clip of Keemstar screaming out the N-word play multiple times within the first minute of the video. It's pretty insane to think this was mainstream YouTube at the time. Another factor is that he infamously had a spat with Nick from the Hey Watch Your Mouth channel over allegations of underpaid editing work, which, though it wasn't too significant a blow for Leafy overall, probably made him more hesitant to work with other people on content. This meant that the brunt of his content was stuff he made on his own, and over the course of his uploads, Leafy makes it very clear that the grind, especially during the times he was uploading daily, was extremely exhaustive. After he took a leave from the internet, he did make some occasional appearances, such as when he gave an interview to Drama Alert in 2018, with the two now being on better terms, but still, Leafy was largely offline, until March 31st, 2020, when, after iDubbbz transitioned, which I think is a very apt word to describe what happened to him, Leafy returned with a pair of videos targeted at him, one of which, called Content Cop, turned out to be a Smash Mouth parody, where he just called iDubbbz a cuck. This sparked a Leafy is Here revival, as despite how much hate he was getting a few years prior, people craved the lowbrow, politically incorrect content without even knowing it. He began to make the same exact kind of videos he used to do, but on everyone that had become relevant during his absence to the general public's acclaim, as he instantly started getting 1 to 2 million views per video. The most successful instance of him doing this was when he targeted Pokimane, criticizing her for supposedly having low-effort reaction content, abusing the copyright system against people she disliked, her appearance, and last but not least, publicizing the fact that she had a boyfriend, to the dismay of her tier 3 subs who simped for her. All things considered, it wasn't exactly the best kept secret in the first place, but the video had an impact nonetheless, as in the immediate aftermath of the video's release, Pokimane boyfriend started trending on Twitter. Leafy continued to release videos on anyone who crossed his path, and despite him being an obvious underdog, the audience was with him. The terms of service, on the other hand, wasn't. Eventually, he posted a video featuring an animation of Ethan Klein, his longtime arch nemesis, phantom taxing himself, which YouTube took issue with. Shortly after, his channel was banned by YouTube, citing repeated violations of community guidelines concerning bullying. This caused a bit of a stir, with many people blaming both Ethan Klein and Pokimane for it, citing Ethan's connection to the then CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, though both he and Pokimane came out to deny these accusations. Just a few months later, Leafy's Twitch was banned as well, supposedly for hateful conduct and threats of violence against a person or group of people. Leafy continued attempting comebacks, and in December 2020, Keemstar announced Leafy's partnership with Red Bloom LLC, which made a new account for Leafy simply called Weefy as an attempt to ban evade by having Leafy be the host of a show, but not the owner of the account. YouTube didn't fall for it and banned unbanned as well. He then tried to make a third account called Lucky in 2021, but the ban hammer swung mercilessly. In 2023, he attempted yet another comeback on Rumble, where he got relatively decent views for a while. However, he stopped streaming in September, with members of his audience already speculating that he just lost interest in making content due to how reduced his reach had become and his content having changed from its original format to him often just gaming with random people. It's quite possible that the stream stopped because he got banned from Twitter, since he was getting a lot of traction on there for saying wildly offensive things that I can't repeat, and for having fallen off terribly in the looks department. Someone needs to get this guy working out ASAP, or he'll become his arch enemy Ethan Klein. Not in a fat-phobic way. Regardless, it seems that his ban made him become demotivated, as his send-off Instagram post read, "See you in 6 months to 5 years when I get unbanned off one of these websites again. Thank you for all the support and money." Eventually, we may see more Leafy, but as of right now, we can be sure he won't ever be back on YouTube. Lieutenant Corbus, real name Sophia, was another member of the commentary YouTube scene who became known due to her being just 11 years old. She shocked people by how she spoke in her videos, often cursing and talking about very explicit topics. The novelty of her content was that she was as articulate as other commentary people who were significantly older, which you could see as a merit of hers or a sign that the commentary community wasn't that bright to begin with. In her own words, she saw herself as an amalgamation of multiple other YouTubers, including iDub, Sneeko, and H3H3. The specific video of hers that put her in the spotlight was released in early 2016 and consisted of her commenting on the Fine Bros React World controversy when the Fine Brothers attempted to trademark the word react.
So they basically made a video that's main idea was just about licensing reaction videos as a whole. That means if you make a reaction video, you pay them royalties. You can't license something that widespread just because you're like pretty much the biggest company that does that. Because you definitely were not the first people to make reaction videos.
On March 9th, the video made its way to Pyrocynical subreddit, getting a fair amount of traction, but nothing compared to when it caught the attention of Pyrocynical himself, who gave her a shout out in a video uploaded soon after. This became the defining moment of her career, as she grew from basically nothing to over 60,000 subscribers in a day. Seeing this monumental growth, Keemstar also decided to platform her, which further boosted her popularity. About a week later, Corbus had over 180,000 subs, and while her explosive initial growth eventually slowed down, she continued to gain subs at a good pace, getting hundreds of thousands of views per video. But things soon began turning sour. Corbus eventually made a video essentially disavowing the community at large, and based on what she herself says in that video, this was because they'd already turned against her, supposedly due to her being rude to no fuckers as friends. Her critiques boiled down to a few factors: lack of originality, low standards, and most importantly, in-group loyalties that protected anyone in the community from criticism. She found this hypocritical since most of the content creators in this sphere got big off of making fun of others, but didn't tolerate being treated the same way. There were follow-ups to this video, but none had the same impact as the first, since at that point, she'd already burned bridges with pretty much every other commentary channel. To no one's surprise, Corbus moved away from the community format altogether, but continued to do skits and freeform rant videos, eventually changing her name to Soph. It's interesting that she mentioned Sneeko being one of her influences, because over time, these rants grew increasingly political in nature, making fun of woke celebrities and people in Hollywood being pedos. It's very odd to see because the format was still indistinguishable from regular content you'd see on YouTube, but now it had a distinctive right-wing vibe becoming increasingly present in the new uploads. This element continued to intensify until it boiled over into an 18-minute screed against Islam called Be Not Afraid, none of which can be shown because it seems there's a really strict content ID ban on it that prevents any segment from being uploaded to YouTube. In the video, she's wearing a hijab and addressing comments she'd made on Discord, where she said that there should be a second little mustache man to go gorilla mode on the Muslims. Can't really get more specific than that, thanks YouTube. This once again got the attention of the commentary YouTubers she'd already beefed with in the past, with the fuckers making a video criticizing her views and accusing her of Islamophobia. This became much larger than YouTube though, with mainstream media outlets like BuzzFeed making articles about her, which ended up having the opposite effect as she was now nearing 1 million subscribers. Despite being just 14 years old at the time, she became one of the biggest voices in the right-wing sphere of YouTube, which again, you can either see as a merit of hers or a fault of that community. She went on to take part in many political shows, from Destiny's Stream to Ethan Ralph's and even Alex Jones. Many people, particularly the journalists who had covered her, had already begun calling for her to be deplatformed for quite some time. But surprisingly, she stuck around on the platform well into 2019. However, it seems Soph decided to go right ahead and get herself banned. First, she uploaded a video called YouTube Parental Discretion Advised, which had an intro sequence featuring an image of Nasim Agdam, a psychotic vegan woman who attempted to shoot up YouTube headquarters. In this same intro sequence, Soph jokingly made death threats against Susan Wojcicki, Markey, who was the CEO of YouTube at the time, and this even got the attention of the police, though they deemed the threat not credible. Then she posted Pride and Prejudice, which was essentially another Be Not Afraid, but this time targeting the LGBTQ+ community, and YouTube promptly banned her for having 3 TOS violations within 90 days. Soap's response was to tweet out an image of herself holding a firearm with the words, "YouTube headquarters, here I come." After her ban, she stuck around on Subscribestar and Gavin McInnes' subscription website Censor.tv for about 2 years, though she's since become inactive on those platforms as well. The last bit of notable online activity she had was on her long-forgotten second channel, which she suddenly began uploading to in 2022, but once the videos began getting traction again, YouTube caught on to her ban evasion and terminated this account as well. She's still occasionally active on Twitter, but it's unknown what she's up to nowadays. Futuristic Hub, real name Brian, is very much unlike other people on this list in that his history extends far beyond his most popular channel. Before he was a YouTuber, he was allegedly involved with scams like MrCashGift.com, which, based on the site's own About section, was a run-of-the-mill pyramid scheme where you'd get gifts from the people you recruit. There were even videos featuring him from the website to prove his association with it, and though he eventually admitted to his involvement, he claimed that he was unaware of its true nature and fell for the scam himself. Brian's first YouTube account, Life in a Tent, was made in 2010 and had the kind of horrible formatting and appearance you'd expect from a channel from his era. There are even annoying orange-style creatures on the side here, like monuments of a lost civilization. Soon after the channel's inception, the format of the content began mimicking Ray William Johnson's Equals 3, with simple commentary and reactions to videos that were viral at the time. The thing is, unlike Equals 3, which made it clear in the thumbnails that they were transformative, Brian branded his content so that it'd be impossible to distinguish between it and the stuff he was reacting to in a kind of primitive clickbait. Since the terms of service were a lot less effective at preventing this kind of thing at the time, this strategy worked, and he got enough views on his channel to start monetizing it. During this time, he married Megan Lee Hart, and the channel also became infamous for going after other creators, most notably Alejandra Gaitan, who became known as the original Reply Girl, one of the main people behind the 2012 YouTube trend of making reply videos with cleavage in the thumbnails to siphon away all of the potential viewers of the original content to, cleavage. YouTubers tend to get in drama with and insult each other, but Brian admittedly went as far as mass flagging her. However, this didn't get him in nearly as much trouble as when he made a video about the 2011 earthquake in Japan that was very insensitive to say the least.
They seem to be getting hit by a lot of earthquakes nowadays. I cannot believe it. Anyway, thumbs up this video for epic earthquake.
This sparked criticism from many other YouTubers, including one Blackbuster critic, who invited him to an interview and confronted him not only about the earthquake video, but also about the scam stuff, which is where we get his admission from. Soon after, the heat from other YouTubers became heat from YouTube itself, and Life in a Tent was removed for violating community guidelines regarding spam content. Shortly after, Brian tried to come back with a channel called K Martin, but he got caught botting views and it got terminated. This is documented in a Daily Dot article from 2012, and apparently he wasn't botting views for himself, but for other people. He figured out that he could get other people's channels affected by botting their views blatantly and having YouTube punish them for it, so he tried to do it to a few channels, including the Yogscast. Ultimately, it didn't work since the payment for the botted views was traced back to the email he was using, and one of the patterns in his bot attacks was that people who spoke out against reply girls would get hit with it. This is because Megan, his aforementioned wife, was one of them, which gave clear motivation to the attacks, and also explained the targeting of the original reply girl, who could have been seen as competition. Either way, these particular plots of his were foiled, and both he and Megan were found to have been suspended in previous accounts of theirs, and had their channels terminated for it. About a year later, Brian made 2 other channels, Futuristic Hub, which uploaded Minecraft-related animations, and Video Games, which began with gameplay videos and slowly evolved to focus on things like Black Ops 2 montages. While Futuristic Hub was all his, the Video Games channel's ownership was shared with a man called Marco Princip, but to say they were behind the channel is facetious since it was actually operated by 2 other people, Brandon Keating and Ty Moss, and based on information revealed much later, there was an agreement between them that gave Brandon and Ty partial control over the channel, as well as the right to a share of its revenue. By late 2014, both channels were doing very well, far better than Life in a Tent had ever done, with Futuristic Hub getting hundreds of thousands and occasionally over 1 million views on a video, while the Video Games channel had over 2 million subscribers. However, this grace period wasn't going to last very long. In 2015, his reputation as a mass flagger affair began making the rounds once again. In April, the information made its way to Keemstar, who proceeded to, for the course of the next 2 months, well into the next year, rally against Brian and band together with other people he'd allegedly been targeting, including Leafy, Kwebbelkop, Syndicate, and others, claiming that the flagging had evolved to outright stalking. In response, Brian declared he was going to sue him for defamation, and at one point even called the police on Keem, alleging he'd been swatted by him with no evidence. Oddly, while Brian was gaining infamy for his lawsuit debacle, none of it reflected on his Futuristic Hub YouTube channel, which was fast approaching 1 million subscribers. However, the popularity that this channel was getting in and of itself was becoming an issue, since while the content was marketed to kids who played Minecraft, there were other inappropriate themes in them that a kid obviously shouldn't see. All of these elements came together at once in mid-2016 to cause Brian's ultimate downfall. First off, the two guys actually responsible for running the video games channel sued Brian and Marco for purposely delaying and refusing to pay them, and won the lawsuit for a big chunky $20 million, with the additional bonus that they got the rights to the channel, which still exists to this day, though it's inactive. If that wasn't bad enough, Repzion, who knew Brian back when he was life in a tent, commented on the lawsuit's result by revealing that years prior, Brian messaged him asking for him to take one of his videos down because he didn't like what he said in it. When Repzion refused to do so, Brian proceeded to dox him and his entire family. Repzion's mother began to be harassed with sexual phone calls, and most egregiously, Brian made a webpage with a picture of Repzion's 1-year-old nephew attached to Repzion's address, followed by a series of very out-of-line threats to the infant. Repzion successfully took the page down by calling the company that hosted the site, but still, it showed what kind of person Brian truly was. Around the same time this information came out, Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers released a video called Minecraft Sex on YouTube, covering the tone-deaf adult-themed videos in the Futuristic Hub channel. While he never actually says the channel's name, people figured it out anyway, and shortly after, YouTube took down the animation Muda was commenting on. Multiple people were very happy to see Brian getting his deserved comeuppance, many of whom were owed money by Brian themselves. While Brian did make the time to animate Keemstar getting probed by aliens, which I can't show here for obvious reasons, his concern eventually shifted away from what other YouTubers were saying and toward the prospect of losing what little he had left after the settlement. In fear of having Futuristic Hub taken away, Brian began claiming that Futuristic Hub was actually owned by a girl named Holly, his new partner, since behind the scenes, he had divorced Megan in 2019. This directly contradicted a statement he had made during the video games trial, in which he said the channel belonged to him. He proceeded to diligently scrub the internet for anyone claiming he owned Futuristic Hub, leaving comments and sending DMs claiming to be Holly, going as far as to take down videos that insisted on saying he owned the channel. This pattern repeated for multiple creators across the platform, including yours truly. I personally received a bunch of emails from this guy threatening me with a lawsuit, and he even tried to flag my video down. While it's still up, he did get it age restricted. In late 2020, the proceedings began for a second lawsuit coming from the same guys that won the previous one, attempting to take Brian's other accounts as he'd predicted they would do. Specifically, the proceedings began on September 15th, and this matters because in order to stifle the court proceedings, he left the US altogether on September 20th, which was easy to do since Holly was a British citizen. Then, Brian claimed he'd left the country a day prior to the lawsuit first being filed, which would create complications if it weren't for the fact that they quickly found out that the file he'd submitted as evidence of his departure on the 14th was falsified with a PDF altering tool. And it doesn't seem he addressed this at all since Brian just went on to claim he'd misremembered. This strategy of moving all of his assets to Holly didn't hold up though, as the judge ruled in favor of the claimants and gave them Brian's other channels. Not only Futuristic Hub, but also Wildcraft and Creamworks Animations as well, which were never nearly as successful. But even then, they didn't stop. There's a court document indicating Brian and Holly started abusing copyright notices against these channels to take them down. They then declared they were going to sue Google over copyright infringement in the United Kingdom and threatened the plaintiffs with physical harm, which led to YouTube deciding to take down all of Brian's accounts. Since then, Brian has filed an appeal, and a number of channels popped up on YouTube that are suspiciously similar to Futuristic Hub in format, with a very similar sounding voice actor for the characters. Eventually, Brian confirmed his association to these channels via posts to Kiwi Farms and emails he sent from one of the channels. He's also occasionally made phone calls to the claimants to voice his dissatisfaction with their conduct.
When I get my hands around your neck, I'm gonna squeeze the life out of you. You understand me?
Brian, why are you talking to me like this?
Eventually, he even attempted to swat one of the claimants, the police report on which reveals he might be back on US soil. Last but not least, I'd like to mention a little wrinkle to the story I haven't seen talked about, but here's a clip of Holly stating her date of birth.
What's your date of birth?
My date of birth is the 27th of October, 1999.
And here's Megan saying when she first heard of Holly.
When did you first hear the name Holly? I actually heard it back in 2010 when I met Brian through his Life in a Tent channel. She had an account that she commented on his videos on, and he would sort of make suggestive comments back to her.
Something's wrong with this picture. I'm not some kind of savant mathematician, but unless Megan is off by 70 years or Holly was mistaken about her own birthday, doesn't this mean Brian was exchanging messages with a then 11-year-old Holly or something? Make of this what you will, but it certainly sounds very strange. Sneeko, real name Nico, started posting to YouTube in 2013, doing basic commentaries over Call of Duty Black Ops 2 footage, and even early on, there was a distinct tendency towards speaking about politics in his videos.
I am not a feminist, and for some reason that means I'm against gender equality. Whenever I tell people that I don't consider myself a feminist, I get the same response. Feminism is for equality of both genders. One, if that was true, it would be called humanism. It's already hypocritical in the title. That's like saying white supremacy is for the advancement of all races.
His content didn't really go anywhere at the time, and his first real chance at exposure came in 2014 by means of Keemstar offering him the opportunity to read a letter from FouseyTube for a video. However, when the recording got back to Keemstar, he found the quality subpar and decided against using it, which upset Sneeko, who went on to release a video attacking Keemstar over it, though it was privated shortly after. Sneeko's contention was that Keemstar never really gave his reading a chance, and based on the conversation they eventually had during a live streamed podcast, it's not a lie.
You went and started messaging me at 3 a.m. and you said, I picked you out of hundreds that asked me to do the reading. Part of me knew you were going to fail going in, to be honest. I just wanted a reason to call you a loser, and now I have it.
How is he supposed to pass that test?
But I mean, is there a possibility that he would have done a good job?
But who determines it? That's
me, motherfucker.
Exactly.
I'm the goddamn person that is.
You wouldn't know. You didn't watch it.
However unfair a situation he found himself in with Keemstar, he was given a much fairer shot by someone else you might have heard of, Mr. Beast. At the time, both Sneeko and Mr. Beast were doing the COD gameplay commentary format and interacted positively with each other's comment sections. Eventually, when Mr. Beast started popping off, he offered Sneeko a job. Jumping on the opportunity, Sneeko appeared in one of Mr. Beast's videos released in 2018, where they built a car out of big fake Legos. The video did very well, but Sneeko wasn't very happy, feeling that Mr. Beast's content was too commercial and sanitized for him. Eventually, this dissatisfaction boiled over into an expose of Mr. Beast, significantly less justified than the one he did against Keemstar. Unsurprisingly, he was fired for doing this, and eventually came to regret making such a foolish decision. And a few years after that, he even showed some gratitude to Mr. Beast for teaching him more about how to succeed on YouTube. Sneeko continued to pave his own way on YouTube for a while, and while his content wasn't yet profitable enough to sustain him, he worked briefly as a model for Nike. He later came to regret this as well, but fortunately for him, he no longer had to do this kind of work, since by the end of 2018, Sneeko released what became his most successful video to date. The video was pretty simple. He interviewed people on the street, asking questions such as, is it okay for a white person to say the N-word? Or, would you say the N-word for $1?
Can white people say the N-word?
Hell yeah.
Hell no.
If they want white people can't say the N-word.
No, they can't.
No.
No.
Why not?
Because they can't. Fine. No.
This got over 10 million views, and it set the tone for what kind of content Sneeko was going to make going forward. With the newfound popularity, Sneeko began posting all kinds of videos, including vlogs and political content. And this is what most people remember him for. These vlogs had good direction and photography, especially for YouTube standards, and featured music quite prominently, which made the content very unique and recognizable. He also tried his hand at stand-up comedy, but it wasn't nearly as successful as his YouTube stuff. In August, he revealed he dropped out of college to focus exclusively on making more content, which was soon followed by his new series called the 1 Minute Podcast. This series took the format of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind videos and made it so that each interview only lasted 1 minute, with multiple topics being covered instead of just one.
Where do we go when we die?
Where we go?
Up God's ass.
Probably heaven.
I think we just disintegrate.
I used to smoke crack.
This format, especially with the frequent cuts to keep the videos very dynamic, was very promising and was already becoming very successful, and his channel was thriving. However, it all came to a screeching halt when the pandemic began, making it impossible for the videos to be made. The momentum he had garnered was well on its way to die off completely, but even then, Sneeko could have easily maintained some of it if he tried different formats. He had more than proven himself capable of coming up with good ideas for videos. However, he decided against any good idea he had when he posted a video where he praised the movie Cuties, a French movie that sexualized actual children.
And I even tweeted like, cuties is clickbait. This was a pretty good movie. And everybody replying like, I'm unfollowing you. This is the limit, Sneako. This is the limit. I can guarantee you, none of you saw the fucking movie, dummies. How do you criticize a movie that you didn't see?
His claim was that the movie's marketing was just clickbait and that the movie itself wasn't, I feel like, at all. Now, I'm not a movie critic, nor have I watched the movie, but I don't think anyone should, since merely checking the parent guide on IMDb for it tells you it features frequent zoomed-in shots of preteen girls as they dance suggestively. Even if the movie was documenting how that stuff exists, explicitly showing it is still wrong in my mind. Additionally, it's easy to glean from any synopsis of the movie that the plot consists of a girl with a strict Muslim mom who finds liberation in sexual dancing. It's pretty indefensible, and his audience definitely opposed it. Around the same time, he broke up with his long-distance girlfriend after he had cheated on her, prompting D'Angelo Wallace, a fellow YouTuber, to say, "Sneako's made for the streets." Now, given what Sneako did, you'd probably expect him to exercise a little bit of humility. I mean, he did basically talk about what he did publicly to everyone, right? But instead, in response, Sneako made a half-hour roast reacting to a documentary made by D'Angelo. While he didn't suffer a loss of reputation or audience, it was clear from this video that Sneako was embarrassed about him having cheated and reacted way out of proportion to D'Angelo's comment. Soon after, Sneako, like many other content creators during this particular era, transitioned into streaming and repurposed his second channel, Sneako, around it. This coincided with the extreme surge in popularity of Andrew Tate's content, which Sneako latched onto hard. Basically, Tate was doing everything Sneako wanted to do, which was to get an insane amount of views by riling people up. Old viewers of his channel probably remember his original personality. It was very different from the person he eventually became. Even if some elements stayed the same, he became much more aggressive and talked much less about how self-conscious he was and him striving to be a successful alpha male YouTuber. With the rise of Andrew Tate on social media, Sneako once again transformed into a Tate light streamer, parodying many of his talking points. However, even if he truly began to believe the things he was saying, they were a far cry from the guy he was just a few months prior, who, for example, thought Dave Chappelle's jokes about trans people were in poor taste, and, most importantly, took his girl to a party and watched someone go gorilla mode on her.
We went to a couple different sex parties.
Oh, word.
What in the
is
and so
going on?
I wanted to tell on this podcast.
You said something to the nature of whatever happens, happens.
What? Yeah, so we go in there with the mentality that whatever happens inside that party, it just stays at the party. Like, yeah. And so I saw her. I've seen her other men, and it's just like that.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I saw it like literally right.
I can't be no.
Okay, hold on. Imagine seeing the girl you love like get Yeah, I do. I love it. Yeah, I love her.
Evidently, this wasn't some extraordinary act of betrayal, but something Sneako agreed to as they were in an open relationship. Later on, he tried to downplay this traumatic experience and qualify that he was also performing the gorilla act with the girlfriend of the guy who cucked him, but no matter how much he openly joked about it, it simply didn't jive well with the new identity he had taken up, making him a laughingstock for much of his own audience. Sometime later, a YouTuber named Brandon Buckingham messaged him and invited him to do a boxing match at a time when influencer boxing was really taking off. This was a business opportunity that, without Brandon, Sneako probably wouldn't get, since the person who owned Happy Punch, the company hosting a lot of the events, happened to be Keemstar, who still didn't want to work with him, possibly because he still held a little grudge over the whole voice acting thing from 10 years prior. In return for Brandon having gone out of his way to convince Keemstar to let Sneako fight in one of the events, Sneako asked Brandon why he's on his This made Brandon mad, and he proceeded to joke about him and his boys running a train on Sneako's ex-girlfriend, essentially making fun of the open relationship. Sneako, in what's probably the greatest act of cowardice so far, tried to dress this up as if Brandon had threatened to rape his girlfriend. This eventually led to Brandon making a long expose video about Sneako. A similar situation took place when Sneako attacked KSI for celebrating Tate's ban, only for KSI to challenge him to a boxing match as well, causing Sneako to back off. Sneako continued to grow on YouTube, amassing over 1 million subscribers on his stream channel, and, at least according to him, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. However, this didn't last very long either, as he made comments about the vaccine and the legitimacy of the 2020 election that got him striked. The final straw was when he said that Chad, a female YouTuber who had criticized him in the past, needed to be known in the carnal sense by a man, proceeding to mime himself performing the act. The community at large reacted to this by calling for everyone to flag his channel, resulting in his ban by the end of 2022. He moved to Rumble, where he continued his activities, collabing with people like Aiden Ross, and even getting into a conflict with Moist Critical, which was ended swiftly by the latter.
You wanna watch my clips? Watch my clips. These are the only clips I'm watching, you are?
Now, the reason he keeps saying watch my clips while threatening me here is because during the stream, I couldn't watch him live because he just kept shouting slurs. So I said, watch my clips to see what I was saying about you. I had to communicate via Twitch clips. And I'm sorry to be that guy, this is like the grammar police of guns, but he's a fucking imbecile. You absolute buffoon. What you have there is not clips. These are mags. They're mags, not clips, you absolute fucking dummy. The same way that this is also a mag. They're all mags. Stop saying clips, you look fucking stupid here.
As wild as they are, the latest developments in Sneako's life are just more iterations of the same patterns we've already seen. He temporarily latched onto Kanye when the latter gave him the opportunity to be a part of his election campaign's team, marking a noticeable uptick in controversial political talk, but Ye dumped him not long after. Then came Sneako's Muslim arc, which many say, with good reason, was influenced by him glazing off of the Tate brothers, who have also promoted Islam in the past. However, this decision led people to recall his cuties controversy since, due to Muhammad's first wife being 9 years old, Sneako had a very hard time talking about topics like the age of consent.
What do you think the age of consent should be, Sneako?
Yeah, this is not an important conversation.
No, it's a super. You don't think fucking kids are not as an important conversation? What do you think the age of consent should be? If you want to be consistent, you don't think anything updates, just tell us what you think it should be.
I think it should be past at a developed age, Dustin.
What is a developed age? If you had to set a law for it, what would you set it? What would you set it about?
It's a developed age.
No, answer the question, you fucking pussy. Holy shit, you're such a cowardly fuck.
While his devotion to Islam seems to have resisted the test of time, he suggested he was considering other options multiple times, complaining that the restrictions it places on him are too rigorous, even hinting at a possible conversion to Christianity, which, again, was probably influenced by Tate. We can expect at least 5 new arcs by the end of the decade, with probably a few religions and role models mixed in there. Tyler, known by most as Monkey Jones, is said to have started on YouTube back in 2007, but the first documented instance of his online activity comes from when he was 15, a now abandoned channel called That Random Hater Guy with just 3 videos, all of which are attacks on another small channel. For a while, he didn't take YouTube too seriously as he was going to college, eventually majoring in English. However, in 2011, he partnered up with a friend of his named Biggs, and together they started a Let's Play channel called The Mumkey and Biggs Show, the name Mumkey being a combination of human and, of course, monkey. They did this for a few years without much success, but eventually in mid-2015, Tyler came up with the idea of doing satirical anime reviews. The first 2 episodes were decently successful, but the third one, a review of an anime called B Gata H Kai, was the first video that really got people's attention, going viral on Reddit and getting 500,000 views. One of the main reasons it got this big was that Mumkey derails the video entirely to discuss the topic of age of consent, which set the tone for the kind of edgy humor that defined his videos. Seeing the success, he made an account just for the reviews, which was well timed since not long after, Mumkey and Biggs had a falling out, causing the latter to delete the channel out of spite. He began dedicating all of his time to the reviews, which is when he first introduced the monkey mask, which became a staple of his channel. But the first sign of trouble came when Mumkey reviewed the anime Boku no Pico, which is infamous for fetishizing the feminization of extremely underage boys and featuring explicit imagery of them. Mumkey got 2 strikes for sexual imagery, prompting him to make yet another channel just called Monkey Jones. All reviews were now moved into the new account with heavy censorship to prevent any further issues. Tyler soon began expanding the scope of the content to more general topics, reviewing the Bible, Cory in the House, and a bunch of other non-anime works. In August 2016, he became a part of the Procrastinators podcast alongside 4 other YouTubers, including his then best online friend, Digibro. The podcast was much milder in tone than his usual content, being centered around nerdy topics in general, with a particular focus on comics. However, as Digi eventually revealed, Mumkey maintained a friendship with several trolls, and not the kind of troll that does what they do with an objective, but the kind that does it for its own sake because they find flooding comment sections with insults kind of fun. Despite all members of the podcast telling him to stop associating with these trolls, he ignored them, which soured Mumkey's relationship with the rest of the group, leading to him being kicked out. From 2016 to 2017, Mumkey was served 2 community guideline strikes, one of them being for a video of his titled Top 10 Most Lethal Methods. The third and final strike was dealt on his video titled Mumkey's Declassified Sharia Law Survival Guide, getting the account banned. In a somewhat strange bout of luck, someone called Trusted Flagger went out of their way to contact him on Twitter who had some kind of association with YouTube and could get the ban reversed. Lo and behold, this person wasn't lying, as the channel was reinstated. I gotta say though, Mumkey definitely didn't play it safe. One of the most prominent elements on his channel around this period was the recurrent theme of none other than the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rodger. Technically, the first time it was ever included in one of his videos was in his Cory in the House episode, but in May 2016, he posted his first Elliot-centered video, Happy Day of Retribution, in reference to the Isla Vista. 3 months later, he posted a 10-hour-long full reading of Elliot's manifesto, and in August, he released an anime review dedicated to Elliot. Over the course of not only this upload, but multiple others that came after, Mumkey went over anything and everything Elliot related, documenting it in his videos. While it did begin as a facile attempt at dark humor, it slowly grew into a kind of true crime evaluation of what led up to the crime Elliot committed and how it could have possibly been prevented. Of course, there's a lot of making fun of Elliot for being a psychotic incel who killed people out of jealousy because others could get a girlfriend and he couldn't. While his video about Diary of a Wimpy Kid was his channel's most popular upload, the Elliot content became synonymous with Tyler's brand, even being featured on the channel's cover art. Eventually, he stopped using the mask, and right around the same time, another arc of his channel began as he came across an Indiegogo started by Derek Savage, the creator of the infamous Cool Cat Saves the Kids movie. The fundraiser was for a new movie called Cool Cat Stops a School Shooting, and seeing the potential for dark humor in it, Mumkey reached out to Derek, who promised that he could get the role of the shooter if he gave the Indiegogo page a shoutout. But despite his shoutout, the Indiegogo never met its goal, and Derek reneged on his promise, prompting Mumkey to encourage his fans to get refunds. In fact, as revenge for Derek's actions, he promised to make his own version of the movie, which he released not long after. This wasn't the only controversy he got involved in that year. The last of his videos on the Wimpy Kid book was about how Jeff Kinney, the author, was a sociopath. He then created a GoFundMe page to rewrite the Elliot Rodgers manifesto in the style of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and it got to about $1,000 before being taken down, possibly for copyright violation of the Wimpy Kid art style and brand name. However, the book did end up getting released in limited quantity, and here's some Turkey Tom trivia. I actually own a copy to this day. Shortly after, all of the Wimpy Kid videos were removed as well for unspecified reasons. Still, his channel was doing well otherwise for the time being, but what he didn't expect was for one of his close friends to be accused of a very serious crime. In November 2018, Mumkey received a Discord call from a female friend of his named Jackie, telling him that her boyfriend, known online as Asperger, a close friend of Mumkey's, was physically abusing her. Against Jackie's wishes, Mumkey decided to call the police, and Asperger was taken into custody. Jackie retaliated against Mumkey by doxing him and spreading false rumors about him, which he addressed in a video, providing evidence against her claims. Soon after, both of his channels received 2 guideline strikes each, and in response, Mumkey privated every single video to prevent more strikes, releasing just one more on the main channel.
2 channel strikes on both Mumkey Jones and Mumkey Jones 2. All 4 of them, in my view, are bullshit. And the fact that they all happened at the same time, I think somebody or some group of people is out there false flagging all of my videos, because it's bullshit.
Unfortunately, his attempt was futile, as both channels were taken down for reasons that were never adequately clarified. This became a massive story on YouTube, with dozens of creators commenting on it, myself included. Regardless of who or what was responsible, the channels were never restored. However, Mumkey attempted to make a return, first by having his girlfriend make another YouTube account called Jungle Jimmy, which failed. Speaking of his girlfriend, through all of the previous issues with staying on YouTube, the audience still liked Mumkey, though this was put in peril when, throughout 2019, information came out that he was cheating on his then-girlfriend Sheepover with another girl named Lou, who for context was allegedly a pedophile who drew furry cub not safe for work art and had previously dated a 15-year-old. Apparently he even got engaged to Lou, but shortly after, his relationship with her fell apart completely, which she dealt with by allegedly sending a sex tape of theirs to a bunch of people. Fortunately, it still wasn't over for Mumkey, as he rekindled his friendships with the guy he started doing YouTube with, Biggs, and they started making videos again, this time mostly revolving around movies. Mumkey also started uploading his regular solo content to an older account of his which didn't get banned for whatever reason, renaming it to Simmy and Jimmy. Though the upload schedule is a lot less frequent due to Tyler having to work a day job, and despite him no longer being able to do the Elliot videos since they're too risky insofar as terms of service strikes, he's still active to this day, not just on YouTube but on other social media as well. I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.